and we'll do a roll call. Ms. Sharp? Here. Mr. Geiler?
Here.
Mr. Grogan?
Here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Mercer?
Here.
Ms. Davis?
Here.
Ms. Thick?
Here.
Mr. Higa? Hello.
Jeremy.
Not as yet.
Wake up.
Jeremy, are you here? Hello? Jeremy, acknowledge by noise.
He's
Seems to
muted.
be. You can hear us
Seems
say
to be
absolutely
gone.
nothing.
And Kate's here. Oh my God. Okay. All right, Jeremy and Kate, unmute yourself, Kate. Let me know that you'll be rejoining the webinar. Well, okay. Jeremy, unmute yourself, please, and let me signify by saying here.
There's Kate.
I'm here.
Wow, how you doing? Good.
Feeling warm.
Okay. Jeremy Higa, one more time. Will you please acknowledge by unmuting yourself?
Yeah, I'm unmuted. I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
That's great. Good job.
All
Okay.
right.
Mr. Remble.
Yes, the second order of business tonight is to reorganize. Traditionally, staff will take the gavel for this short portion. We need to elect a chair and a vice chair. I've even got the pen. And a vice chair tonight. Are there any nominations for chair?
I nominate Karen Smith as chair.
Does Karen accept?
I second.
Yes, thank you, ladies.
Are there other nominations for chair? Hearing none, we'll vote on the motion and second for Karen as chair.
Kate,
Did you have somebody?
the vote is for me as chair.
Aye.
Well done. Jeremy?
I
Oh, good. Pat?
Pat.
Pat?
Vote aye.
Aye.
Karen, chair.
Sorry?
Do you vote aye for Karen as chair?
Aye. Sweet Jesus. Mr. Geiler?
Aye.
Mr. Grogan?
Aye.
Mr. Mercer?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Ms. Fick?
Oh,
Smith? Aye. It's unanimous.
Gavel is yours. Would you like a vice chair?
Yes, I would like a vice chair. I'd like to make a motion for vice chair, and if nobody does, I'm gonna make one.
I'd like to make a motion that Pat Sharp be vice chair.
I think that's a great idea.
Second.
Do you have any problem with that, Pat?
No.
I didn't. think so. Good. Any questions? Kate, would you like to vote on the motion for Pat as vice chair?
Aye.
She gave a thumbs up. Jeremy?
Aye.
Good job.
Aye.
Pat? Good job. Richard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Lee? Martha?
Aye.
Karen, yes. Good. Okay.
Oh,
Super.
good.
Thanks.
We're done with that.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you.
Okay. Tonight, we are going to go through 4 proposals. I'm going to read something and we will deal with these in order.
Do we have to do minutes?
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. July 31st, we have the minutes. Are any corrections, additions, or deletions to those minutes? Hearing none, I'll take a motion and a second.
I move that we accept the minutes as for last meeting.
July 31st.
Yes,
That's-
July 31st.
I'll take a second.
Second.
Thank you, Lee. Okay, Ms. Van Olst. I need your vote on the minutes. All right, thumbs up. That'll work. Jeremy?
Aye.
Pat? Richard?
Aye.
John? Abstain. Good job. Jim?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Martha?
Aye.
Karen? Aye. So 8 and 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Oh, do we want to do the public hearing?
Yeah, probably would.
Okay. Okay,
It's on the agenda.
well, sometimes things get. All right, so I'm gonna open the public hearing on the CPA plan. Does anybody here have any additions or corrections or things they'd like to see in the plan? Any paragraph, anything like that? I'm gonna say it again. Please make sure all applications are numbered.
Do we-
Thank you. Jeremy?
Did you say this was a public hearing?
Yeah,
Do we need to vote to open it?
No, it's open.
no, it's open.
All right.
Do you
No,
have any-
well, I mean, the normal conversation, if anyone has interest in setting aside a certain amount for, or a certain percentage for affordable housing. But if there's no other will, then I have no additions.
Marvelous. Ms. Van Holt, do you have anything you'd like to chip in? Okay, good. I like, we can do this. Pat, do you have anything? Richard,
No.
John, Jim,
No.
Lee, Martha,
Nope.
Karen, public? Yes, Ms. Lubert, what can we do for you?
Michelle Lubert, 70 Division Street. Just to comment on Mr. Higa's comment. There was a public hearing on the real estate transfer fee, and several people commented in support of increasing CPA funds to affordable housing versus enacting a real estate transfer fee. So possibly this can be discussed more. I know Mr. Higa's come before the committee to increase the amount of money to affordable housing, but from what I understand from other meetings where he spoke, it wasn't supported. And granted, I wasn't at the meeting, I'm curious as to why it wasn't supported. But there is opposition to the real estate transfer fee. And the comments I've received, and as was explained at the public hearing for the real estate transfer fee, people who we already give to the CPA, why not use more money towards that purpose? So I think Mr. Higa would have citizen support in his effort as well. And I just wanted to comment on that, that perhaps you should revisit it and talk about it.
Anybody? Any comment?
Well,
All I can tell you, Michelle.
I have a,
Jeremy, go ahead.
I mean, I have a comment. So the advantage of having CPA funds given to the trust for like open-ended is that they can use it to procure property without the normal process that municipalities have to go through. So it is much more, it enables them to act more quickly and efficiently. That's CPA funds would differ from like funds that would come from things like the transfer fee.
Martha,
It's my understanding they wanted 75% of our money to go to affordable housing. Wasn't that the number tossed out, Jeremy? Jeremy,
Oh,
was that your?
Well, no, I mean, that was in a previous year, right? But
Oh.
I mean, if
Point of
I mean,
order.
I could throw out a motion. So I make a motion.
I'm still talking.
point
Okay.
of order. You
Okay.
cannot do 75% because the minimums are 10% to each, which would drop it to 70. So a 75% threshold is a moot point.
Well,
Go for
that's true, but what I wanted to point out is if we gave that much money to the Affordable Housing Trust, we wouldn't have the money for like farmsteads for farmers project because all the money would have been allocated. A substantial portion would be allocated to the Affordable Housing Trust. The other point I want to make is we have given every affordable housing project that came before us, we've approved. So we have not denied the affordable housing.
No one said that.
Okay, but I often see that our community isn't doing enough. But it seems to me, and I can't remember, but Chris would have the figure of the whole entire time that we've had CPA funds. we probably donated, what, 2 million? How many million?
I don't have your figure right in front of me.
Chris, can I ask a question, please? Would that be possible to give us that number at some point? What has been totally given through CPA to affordable housing? Because
We have it, so.
I know we do, but for him to pull it up right at this juncture, I think is a little much. I would have to agree
Well,
with Martha.
We have the percentages.
Jeremy, excuse me, you need to wait. As soon as we can get that number, I don't think you can do it today, but I think we could get that in the sense of how much the town has given, how much of the totality has gone to affordable housing. Yes, Jeremy? Never
So
mind. Kate?
I think we I think we have the percentages, right? And so I think it's roughly a third, but I think it's more heavy in favor of affordable housing.
Yeah.
And to Martha's point earlier, we do deny things. We haven't fully funded the request from the Affordable Housing Trust. So it's not like, right? So we do deny some things. And I guess further to Martha's point is, so this is only, so when you do this, it's only saying, okay, this amount for this current year's funds is going to go towards affordable housing if it's spent in this year, or it'll be put aside for affordable housing if it isn't spent this year. And so that's all it's saying.
Kate?
Thanks, Karen. I just wanted to add for the sort of public education piece of it, two things. One is that the CPC board doesn't fully direct where the money goes. We receive applications and see that they are legitimate and fundable. So some of this process of allocation of where funds end up has to do with who requests the funding. And by and large, in the years that I have been on, we have funded fully or large majority of all of the affordable housing projects. We cannot fund projects that haven't been applied for. But we also are very fortunate that most years we have enough or more than enough funds to distribute to all of the projects. So I don't want it to come off that we are opposed to funding affordable housing. We do that quite frequently and for a lot of money, and for almost fully the amount of every single affordable housing proposal that comes to us. We have not stopped an affordable housing program from happening. So there is plenty of support coming from this board, whether or not we're setting aside funds or not, we are fulfilling the funds requested.
Mr. Rembo.
Karen, and Martha, the number is about 2.7 million in affordable housing projects funded.
Great. How much have we given?
Out of what?
Out of about 7.3 million total, it's about 38%.
Right.
So are we constrained by anyone, any policy or anything, any rule or law as to what percentages we are supposed to follow? Or
We
can
must give each year, we have 10% to affordable housing, 10% to open space recreation, 10% to historical, and 5% to administrative. So 35% of our money is predetermined as it must be allocated in those areas.
And so the other
65%,
55, 60, whatever,
65.
is free money and can be.
Well, I get very nervous when people talk about free money in the
Well,
government.
free in that it's not constrained is all.
There are no constraints on it
Right,
for
that's what-
allocation.
So if it would seem a little bit foolhardy then to put further constraint on it. I mean, if you get a really good proposal that you really want to fund, but it's outside, if you were to constrain what you're able to spend,
Correct.
and you get something that's outside of that, you wouldn't be able to fund it.
I think you, being the new kid on the block, you hit it right on the head. Part of the problem is, and I historically, I went to the Affordable Housing Trust and have for years and said, you gotta find another place to get some money other than CPA, okay? So this concept came up. My problem is that because it's a threefold, okay? Open space, recreation, affordable housing, and historical. I don't wanna say 65% goes to this. I don't think it's right, because I think there are other things that may come up that we wanna do, so I don't wanna pigeonhole us. I think it's up to this committee that is a representative board, and we spend a lot of time considering it. Michelle, I appreciate your input, but I will tell you that affordable housing has always been the lead dog, always to us, is to make sure it's the first thing that we do, so. Anybody else have any other comments on this? Lee?
Just since it was brought up by someone in the audience, the real estate transfer fee should be a separate entity. I mean, it should be looked on separately in that it's a nimble funding source that the Affordable Housing Trust can be replenished. And then they can have the whole year to identify projects that come up, and be very, very nimble. Whereas the CPA fund, that's a 1-year mechanism to distribute funds. So that is by a project. And with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, they can be more nimble. So if a project comes up out of cycle, they can quickly jump on that. And a lot of the times they're bidding against speculators and people that have cash. And the Affordable Housing Trust, by having a kind of a pool of money at their disposal, they are able to compete and be competitive and nimble. So it's a different funding source. As Karen said, it's focused, it's a local funding source. And local control. So that's the real difference is between real estate transfer.
Point of, I see your hand, Michelle.
No, I'm just.
You're just waving.
But if there is a moment, I'd like to just comment, but at your discretion.
Okay. This is a public hearing on the plan, okay? I will take your comment, short and sweet, whatever your next statement is now.
Now,
Yes.
Michelle LeBaire, 70 Division Street again. I did reach out to the CPC and spoke with Chase Mack at the CPC regarding what can be done with the CPA.
This is the.
Administrator.
This is the coalition.
The coalition,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And, he said much what you said here, 10% to affordable housing, 10%, et cetera. And then there's the 5% administrative fee.
Correct.
He said there is no reason why we could not, for 1 year, designate a higher percentage to affordable housing trust. If that, and then I told him that Ms. Davis had referred to it as a call to action. So I'm seeing it as a call to action. So it being a taxpayer who's been told to open my wallet to take a hit for affordable housing, there may be some projects that, like, say 50,000 to a bowling alley or something, that get sidelined. So he actually said, well, you can do that for a year and then revisit it next year.
We know.
It doesn't have to be 50%, you have 65% left over. Nobody's saying take 65% and give it to affordable housing. But if you said 25% and then the 10% reserve, that would be 35%. So that's where this is coming from, I see, and also the support, I think it would have citizen support versus another tax in the town of Great Barrington.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, concerns, or issues in reference to the annual review and how we set this up? Hearing none, I would like to close the public.
Wait,
hearing.
so I have my hand up again. I've had it up a bunch.
Well, I don't see you anywhere.
There, now it's there.
It keeps getting put down for me. I don't know why.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
So I'm sorry, to Martha's point about the farmstead thing is, so that's actually a reason to give the trust more money, because so the only way that this works for them now is because they need to get the money soon. So if the trust had the money, they could go to the trust and request the money. And then they could act out of cycle. So everything that Lee said, it doesn't just apply to transfer fee things. It's any monies that the trust has. So I guess that's my point. And just to echo what Michelle said is like, we're only talking about one cycle. We're not talking about in perpetuity. We're just saying for this year, let's put aside this amount for affordable housing. And if we spend it, then great. And if we don't spend it, then it'll be put aside for affordable housing for a future year.
Great. I will tell you that I'm going to close the public hearing because our job tonight, okay, is not this. That can be dealt with. We're gonna go through these 4 proposals. So I'm gonna close the public hearing. Do I have to do anything special, like blow a
No,
whistle or what?
Just for the record, no comments were received in email or writing, so.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're going to do the 4. Okay, the first thing I'd like to deal with is and because it came in and I can't find the copy, I would like to deal with the construct emergency housing families in transition. If you would please come up front and sit on that side of the room, okay?
Karen, we're not going to approve the plan, setting your review and approval of the CPS. Do we need to do that or not?
Well, we're not changing anything.
Okay, so we should probably just go through that.
Fine, we can do that.
I make a motion to approve the plan.
Great, second.
Second.
Kate,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Pat. Aye. Richard,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Martha.
Aye.
Karen. Aye, great. Okay.
Madam Chair, I need to recuse myself. I work for Construct and
I'm sorry to hear that. No,
I'm really pleased that she works for Construct.
go ahead. I want you to sit over there because I know that it's here, it's difficult on that side of the room, if you'd be so kind. Okay, why don't you walk us through what you've done for this?
Okay, so our proposal is
Could you
to,
introduce yourself?
I'm Jane Ralph, Executive Director of Construct. We do affordable housing and support services, in South Berkshire. So our proposal is, our request is $92,400 to implement, emergency housing for families in South Berkshire in advance of the winter. Part of why this is really urgent, and this didn't get into the proposal because we didn't have it confirmed. ServiceNet is going to be providing some emergency housing in South Berkshire for individuals who are homeless next winter. That's not going to apply to families. And so what we've learned from doing this in motels is that the need continues to grow. And we believe that this winter is going to be worse than others. Homelessness has increased from something like 360 folks in 2022 to over 661 in the Berkshires. And so this is a huge growing issue, and we want to work with a town like Great Barrington to see if we can come up with a model with existing housing that we have to house one family at a time that already has an exit plan to be able to move on so that they don't have that gap and end up falling deeper into homelessness. That's kind of in a nutshell, that's what we're looking to do. Yes.
Go ahead, Pat.
I was curious what the housing would be used for if not for this.
It's the 4-bedroom house that we have at the Windflower property. Our experience has been both with rentals and with this house that very few families qualify for a 4-bedroom. We don't see many families on our wait list that are that large. And that's what we've experienced with this house as well. And so it's gone largely unused since the owners moved out. And so we feel like this is a really good use of
So
that
it couldn't
property.
be for families in an ongoing way.
We could rent it if there were eligible families, but we're not seeing families that are large enough to need a 4-bedroom house. And that.
I'm asking whether it could be rented to 4 families, just as you're planning to use it.
No,
for
because it's
4.
an individual family. Because it's the way the zoning works is we can only house one family unit at a time.
Wow. I see, but you could
So if
house
the
4
zoning got changed
families.
at some point, we could do something
You
different. but it
could
isn't.
house 4 families short term.
No, I don't know.
Isn't that what you're talking about?
No, one family at a time for up to 2 weeks while
No.
they're able to go into their exit plan. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what we wrote. So one family at a time, the family gets the privacy that they need. It's not like a shelter setting. And then they're able to move on to whatever that next step is. That next step might be shelter. It usually takes at least 2 weeks to get into the EA shelter. It may be they can get into their apartment that quickly. It could be a situation like we had on Dresser Street where the house burned down and there were multiple families that needed a place to live. So it's a stopgap measure for homeless and other displaced families. Yes.
Martha,
I'm interested, is this in Great Barrington or Egram?
Great Barrington.
Well, then it would seem to me that going forward, we should try to change the zoning on that house.
That would be great, but that's probably not gonna happen by this winter.
No, I know, but it has, and one
we do
request.
Right, we do see this as a pilot project. It would be much more expensive for us to convert it into duplex or something else. And so this is the most affordable, best use of this property at this time. We hope that the data that we collect on these families can be used for a more long-term solution that we may do or another group might do. We're really,
Yes.
sorry, go ahead.
go ahead, John.
What, in your experience, what is the need for housing for a family of that size? Do you
A
encounter
family
that
of
once,
four?
well, whatever you need.
It's
for a
whatever,
four-bedroom house.
our definition of family would be any household that has children under 18. So,
Oh, so you,
so it wouldn't have to be a homeless family that's that large. It could be a family of any size for the purposes of this application.
okay,
If it was to be permanent housing, then it has to be a larger family.
okay, so it's.
Jim,
2 questions. Are these Great Barrington families?
Yes. And we're really excited to pilot it just with Great Barrington families, in part because the point in time survey that we did last year, that counts all the homeless folks as best we can each year. We do it every January. The homeless families that we were able to count were all from Great Barrington. There were 9 of them at that
Do other
time.
towns participate in funding these type projects?
There are other towns that support homeless shelters. I haven't seen one that's exactly this model. And we're also excited to try that.
Right, so what I'm asking is, in South County, we have a CPA, do other towns have budget money that they appropriate and send to construct for this purpose?
No, this is a new project for us. We were able to pilot it in motels through money from the Rural Health Network because it was such a problem last year coming out of COVID that folks were starting to get displaced. And so we did pilot it with them in motels and that's really not sustainable for a family financially or just, it's not a great way for a family to live.
okay, Jeremy?
So with Martha's point, so we've been talking about zoning that would cover. So you can't spot zone, right? You can't just change the zoning on that property, but we've been talking about like congregate living and that kind of zoning anyway. So
Right.
we are talking about that. It's kind of a long process, and it's like a really long process. So this is immediate. So I would make a motion to move this. Seems to qualify for step 2, and so I make a motion to move this application onto step 2.
I second it.
We're talking about step 2 special meeting. Yeah, Pat,
Can I ask a question? Stan?
I would hope so, please feel free.
So a family is there for 14 days and for some reason, either the plan falls through or they don't have another opportunity. Would it be possible then to extend it if you don't have other?
This being a pilot, we would look into that
Good.
possibility, certainly. Yeah,
That's
our goal is never to make someone more homeless than they were before they started working. with us.
Excellent concept,
Yeah,
excellent.
yeah, you can quote me on that.
I'm like-
That's what I was gonna ask.
Go ahead, John.
Is 2 weeks adequate? Is 2 weeks?
It's what we
adequate?
feel is good for the pilot for a variety of
To give it-
reasons.
yes.
We really want we want to start with families who already have a plan in
Right.
place or who have already been working with us and have come to us and said, if we could just have 2 weeks, we can get into this or we can get into
Mm.
that. We know this is not going to help chronically homeless families, but there's more resources available for those families through permanent supportive housing and through other HUD measures as, the types of things we've talked about.
Jay, I kind of have been watching the way you wend your way through this mire of homeless, whatever. And John, with all due respect, because I am sure whatever she needs, she'll figure out. As
Oh, yeah.
long as she's got some assets here that she can use and not to overuse them or burden them. So, if there's no other comments, concerns, or issues with this request, I will take a vote on moving this to step 2 for emergency funding. Pat,
Aye.
Britt,
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Martha.
Aye.
Karen. Aye. Kate,
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you. Can I ask a very quick question?
absolutely.
Is there anything else that you feel like you need to hear in step 2? We tried to kind of be, I mean, we'll have more data for you and we'll have more backup for it, but is there anything you feel like is missing in the general look of things that would be a deal breaker for you?
I would love to see you number things on the pages so we can follow it.
And
So I
the
can
other
see.
thing
Let the record show.
Okay,
I'd be interested in is, I mean, I presume you have to do, I don't know if you have to do it, but a financial breakdown of
Correct.
what the 92,000.
Absolutely.
yep,
Yeah,
Yeah, more detailed budgets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
great, thank you very much.
Karen, I had one thing, just for all the applicants, I mean, I don't know which ones are gonna make it on to step 2. But at least the requests in step 1 are more money than we have available or that we may
Come
have
on.
available. And so if all of the applicants in their step 2s, if they make it there, if they could tell us how it would work if they didn't receive full funding.
I will tell you, Jeremy, that that's a point, but let's get through this first, step 1 to step 2, and then we'll know better, okay? Then that edict can be put down, okay? Second, we're gonna go over is the marble block. Mr. Barham, you wanna run us through this, and I would like to know why.
There's a phone.
It's my phone.
Oh, sorry.
I would like to, understand why the immediacy of this.
Yeah.
As part of it.
The marble block is the Main Street. Yeah, Frank Barnum, owner of the marble block, 268 to 78 Main Street. Currently, there's 8 residences on the top 2 floors. And it was a pretty public purchase. Both from when a previous owner tried to buy it and then when we got it across the line. The circumstance surrounding the immediacy of the request is typically the disruption that occurs from the workforce housing and displacing people from their current tenancy is when you have to start doing surgery on the buildings. In particular, stuff related to the infrastructure, plumbing, electrical, stuff like that. It's more efficient, quick, cost effective, but when you do that, there's also a pretty large capital outlay that then dictates the need for X amount in rent to support the redignification and the replacement of really large items. And that gap is kind of what we're talking about. The affordable housing price per unit is, from my understanding, typically between 400 and 500,000 per unit to build. There's a lot of reasons for that. This is not a affordable housing project that we are rebuilding, just to be clear. Trying to do a 75K per unit request to the CPA to have that money available so it goes immediately into the capital stack
So it doesn't warrant the increases above 100% AMI, and we would make a 10-year trade on that. In particular, items at that specific location that are pretty large and fully depreciated and or in immediate need, roof, HVAC, which then also warrants the electrical upgrade. So having that completed in advance, especially since we have to do the roof and we've already contracted somebody to be available, I figured that we would immediately start the process. Having this in advance then positions the building in subsequent years to give the town the opportunity to continue the process. This is not the full amount we are requesting, which you would see in step 2, is not the full amount of this specific capital outlay. We ourselves will continue to put in our capital. So what questions can I help with?
Wait, well, I'm just gonna say it because I'm sure some people might ask, how does this differ from Allender? Project that came up? So, you know, again, you're a private developer, you're looking for, you know, you have a certain deed restriction, in your case, 10 years.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like
So
number one question, if you can separate yourself from that particular project.
I can't speak to the specifics because I didn't review the Alander submittal. One extraordinary difference is we're not displacing anybody. We're not clearing the building. People are still living in there. And we are going to be methodical over a multi-year period, which is less efficient, will cost us more, but it doesn't displace people. I believe Alander had to fully gut and rehab the structure and clear the building. So that is one difference. Pardon?
Nobody was there.
They,
Nobody was living there.
yes, they were. They cleared the building.
There's two Allenders, so.
The one on the corner, not this.
Yeah. we're talking
Yeah,
about-
okay.
And the Hayward
Yeah.
lot versus.
Right.
I think their price per unit was a little bit higher. I think they were 100 or 125. We are requesting 75K per unit. And beyond that, I don't know the big difference. One thing I would suggest is to make sure that people are aware of my opinion on a multi-pronged approach. Nonprofits are terrific. I support them. It's also important to support the buildings that are on the tax roll. To make sure that it keeps feeding a lot of the engines, various taxes, CPA funding, etc. The market is strong enough to take care of that building. If it does that, then we continue to trade dollars. Arithmetically, the rents will have to fundamentally be higher. I'm presenting an opportunity to the town. I would respect any decision it made. If we needed to not have 150,000 because there had to be a greater, more dispersed allocation of funding, we would welcome that. But managing and getting capital in that capital stack, especially while we begin to deploy capital into the building, is going to be critical if we are to keep it a workforce housing building, which I believe right now every single person in there meets that criteria. And on top of that, we are attempting to add 2 more units within the building. Why? Like many buildings, there's an inefficiency of the square footage in relation to how it is presently and how the current geometry is allocated to the floor plates. This right here would be very important for us to continue to allocate more resources into the building to broaden its output per square foot, and it would end up serving more people. So in a simple way, this is to simply get money into that capital stack, so we don't have to trade higher rents for the allocation of things which are absolutely fundamental to be done. Yeah.
Matt?
this is a historic property in the downtown. We're looking at proposals that are pressing need. Wouldn't it make more sense to ask for historic preservation to do the roof, which clearly needs to be done right away? And then in later proposals, we could talk about affordable housing. But at this point, you're just trying to save the building.
I appreciate that question, and I understand that it would probably fit in multiple silos here. If I were to ask for that money, it wouldn't come with that deed restriction. I'm trying to give the town an opportunity to make sure that we don't flip another building and have the market take care of it and then push people outside of that workforce housing ban. My understanding is that may or may not be the case on having a deed restriction come with it. I'm offering the town the ability to have that minimum 2 units out of 8, hopefully 10 after the following year. But at minimum, who cares whatever happens in the future? I figured going the housing route was more direct. The reason why we are using housing as a catalyst is because like I said, if we had to clear the building and do things quicker and more efficient, the market would come back and rent it up. It would be another building, I think, where there'd be some fiery arrows being shot at it, and it would displace folks. So that's why I'm suggesting to the town to consider this. And like I said, if 150 is too much, if there's an alternative suggestion in step 2, I'm open to it.
John,
So, correct me if I'm perceiving this improperly, but you're taking a building that currently has 8 affordable market rent units in it and offering to make it into 2 for us.
I'm offering to sustain at minimum 2 of them. I don't have a immediate plan to, right after this would be approved, to then push other people outside of
You
those
said,
bans.
right.
So, but I think once we go through this process over a multi-year period, which could be between 2 on the short and 4 on the long, for everything that we would like to do, it's going to be very expensive, and that expense would then typically be underwritten by rent adjustments. In this instance, we would cap at minimum 2 units at 100% AMI and lower. That doesn't mean if someone's already in there, and let's assume whatever their present rent might be is at 82% AMI, it doesn't mean that we have to go in there and immediately push them. But I'm just saying that we would use that. I think that that's your ceiling, your limit. Does that answer the question?
yeah, Martha.
My only concern here, I'm trying to understand why we would have to do this now as opposed
Yeah.
to the second part of this CPC funding. Could it wait till?
That's a great question, and here's the plain answer. We are going to have to deploy capital now. We are attempting to work with a bank, which we have a commitment. It is subject to rates which have moved substantially in the past 6, 7, 8, 9 months. So right now we are carrying the building without bank financing. We will have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in the upcoming 12 months, in particular, before, in one case, with 1 unit alone, the roof, by the end of this year. While we begin to deploy capital, more capital in that capital stack, it's important that if we were to make a trade on that, it's gonna be now, otherwise we'll end up having to refinance ourselves out at a higher cost that's gonna bear more interest.
Mr.
Does
Guyler,
that make sense? Okay.
You're mentioning at the very end of your proposal, and you mentioned it a little bit now, that having this funding now in, as you call your capital stack, and moving forward in renovating the building and making necessary changes with the intention to secure at least 2 more workforce housing units. So are those workforce housing units also being capped at 100 AMI?
Right.
Or are you
Sure.
including that in your proposal? I'm a little bit unsure of where those 2 extra units will fall within the realm.
If we are, it's you're talking about the current 2.
Well, the current 2 you've explained
Yeah.
fairly well, but then at the end, you mentioned that the current funding would have a compounding impact to enable you
Oh, yeah.
to more planning
It-
and resources to secure at least 2 more workforce housing.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that you're changing the floor plan of some of the units to carve out 2 additional.
We don't necessarily have to.
Units.
I understand the question now. Let's assume we received protection for those 2 units. The following year, if we were welcome, obviously, and if, you know, I will come back and I will petition for 2 more at that same price per unit.
Okay. I
We
see.
will be spent, unless if something happens and everything gets closed down and we clear the building, which is not my intention to do so, unless if we have to. It is my intention to methodically kind of go about this in a sequenced way over a multi-year period. So, whether we choose to, take one particular space, which is obviously inefficient from a floor plate standpoint, and make that 2 units, that would be us doing that. I would give the town the opportunity the following year through submission for another 2, whether we did that or not, and the town still achieves its objective. Does that make sense?
Could I also just piggyback one more question?
You get one more, and then
Thank
I'm gonna
you.
call somebody else.
So, I'm trying to fully understand your proposal, and I think in the overlay I hear is that you're attempting to keep the building at workforce levels
Yes.
for the workforce in the town, which kind of translates in my mind to 100% AMI or 80% AMI for the whole building, but we're limiting the cap to only 2. Am I misstating this? It's kind of a little bit what I'm thinking that would be your hope to keep it workforce, and maybe if you're only limiting 2 of the units, can you describe more fully what you mean by workforce housing?
Yeah, workforce housing to me is anywhere, very close to, 100% AMI. If you're a little bit above, fine. If you're a little bit below, fine. If you're 65%, fine. The, intention to adjust people, beyond that is, gonna be dictated by how we go about these investments. And they're not very elective when you're dealing with, you know, a steam boiler that is substantially old and feeds that portion of the building. There's a significant cost. So when you see real activity and real impact, when it comes to clearing buildings, the real work is to address code issues, compliance issues, significant deferred maintenance, which happens in a lot of these old northeastern towns. People own buildings for many, many, many years. They realize that depreciation, it trades, and then the next person gets to be the bad guy. That's fine. I'm just saying, I know what we're looking at in the upcoming years. It seems like it's important to add units and also safeguard units within those workforce housing bands. I agree with it. And to the extent possible, we're gonna do our best with that. This is a way to where the town can allocate funding and also have a legal a deed restriction on it.
I understand.
And that doesn't mean that the other ones are gonna be 3 times as much. We'll see. You know, I typically we do our best.
Okay, Kate?
Thanks, Karen. I like the overall idea of trying to maintain essentially walking distance workforce housing in our downtown area. My question might actually be more for Chris, which is what we're here to do in step one is to just see whether these applications meet muster and can technically be funded and moved on to round two. And so I'm not clear as to whether this type of definition of housing meets, like, my understanding is that affordable housing is a legal term based on percentages and incomes and numbers. And then my second question is, does this sort of like a pre-investment in capital upgrades to a whole building with a proposed 2 out of certain number of units, does that also pass the muster in terms of what the EPA is meant to fund? I like the overall idea. I just want to make sure we're doing our job in step one, which is to make sure that it checks the boxes.
Okay, Chris will respond to that, Kate, and then Jeremy.
Okay, in terms of eligibility, this is certainly eligible for CPA community housing funds. Creating or supporting housing that is up to, but not more than 100% of area median income is eligible for CPA funds. So this is definitely within that box. Your other issues, or I should say criteria, thanks Karen, for this urgent round have to do with what is urgent about the proposal, is financing in place, are permits in place, other things like that that this board has discussed and which you indicated in the application forms would be considered as urgent versus not urgent. So number one is eligibility, number two is urgency.
One, everybody just hold on. Jeremy?
No, I mean that I had similar things to Kate. And then also just the way, I guess it's another point for Chris, the way it's written, it seems like it's asking for money to renovate. And I think if they're moved through to step two, they need to be really clear how this is just creation of affordable or, maintaining affordable housing.
Great, Lee.
Just real quick, technically it's creation of units that are not legally affordable housing units right now. They may be rented at a low rate.
Yeah.
They're not legally, so they are technically creating 2 units.
Lee.
Yeah, Karen, I had a little more. And
Do you have
yeah,
a
and
question or
so
you
then,
making a statement?
well, it's a statement. Like I'm wondering, are we really creating something, especially immediately, or are we just maintaining? So then I would have questions about like what are the leases that are in place and what would the potential rentals be if they weren't going to be maintained as affordable or for workforce housing? Like given just the market and what they're going to put into the building, what would those rents be?
At this point, the question about eligibility is clear and answered. It is creation of 2 units.
Yes.
At least 2.
Lee, do you have a question?
Yeah, I did. So if this money were not to be allocated, what would be the plan for this project?
If the money were not to be allocated in this request, we are going to have to allocate and make these upgrades regardless. So, I will continue to move forward and there will not be the protection on the deeded restriction. And we're going to move forward. It's my intention to move forward. We have to move forward, actually. It's like there are certain things that are just not going to be okay.
So are you saying that the current tenants will be evicted and it'll become market rate housing?
I'm not saying that, and that's not a fair question. I'm not saying that, and that's, no, I did not say that at all. And I am going to be very clear on this. Like, there's a great deal of scrutiny and opinion, and I do my best. I did not say anybody's going to be evicted, and if they are, there's a reason for that thesis, and it's something that I would carefully consider. I'm offering the town this because of the larger mosaic. Yeah.
Martha, then Pat.
Well, I just wanted to this thing into perspective. It seems like CDC and the Affordable Housing Trust were gonna buy the Marble building, right? And they couldn't afford to do it.
Correct.
So this is another way to make that housing happen. So that's my statement.
Whatever. Pat?
Nobody seems to like this idea, but in what we gave out, it says examples of urgent need. There is an emergency which requires immediate and unforeseen funding to preserve a historic or open space or housing. So you have a historic property and the roof is leaking. I think you could do a proposal for this round on that basis, and then.
If you would like, if the board would like me to modify this.
No, can't do it. We've already had, okay, here's where we get, this is why we have deadlines. My suggestion to you is, she may have a good idea and you go in with through the regular funding route, not through an emergency route. I'll be honest with you, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna vote against this. Number one, I don't see the urgency. And number two, there's something about this whole thing, when we dealt with Allender and we said it wasn't enough for the, the 10 years and there's something about this whole thing that just doesn't seem, that's my opinion based on my thing. I think Pat has a point, and I think, well, I'm just letting you know ahead of time. John?
If, in all respect, all due respect, if we approve this and it still has to go to town meeting, right?
Yeah.
So the last time we approved almost this very thing, it was turned down.
Correct.
So
So
just something
a
to
word to
think
the
about.
wise is sufficient.
The roof would be more of a.
Yeah. I'm
You
sorry.
got did you get a roof? Or what did you get
For the code.
It's
Okay,
not a roof.
now this,
It's,
it's
we're
off
not
topic.
talking about
Yeah,
the code.
It's off topic. So,
I have a question.
yes, Jim.
Two questions. First, I think that the urgency is a commitment. He's looking to make a commitment right now before he gets into it. For 10 years that these two units would be landline. Now, are they studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms?
1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms.
So there'll be two bedrooms, one bedroom, what two that you're looking to allocate for workforce housing, what would they be?
Whatever makes the most sense for the board, but honestly, I would allocate one of each. It would be the plan.
So you only have 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, you have studios.
No studios, it's 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms right now.
And then are they currently at 100% AMI rented out or less?
They're presently less. The building itself is a workforce housing building. That's why the CDC wanted to address it. Because we're thankful that the market will take care of it. When you have to trade these significant dollars over time, or to do it quickly and efficiently, it creates a public jarring circumstance.
So the residents that are there, are they subsidized other ways?
Everybody's a market rate tenant and everybody's on a month lease.
Okay, no one has any special,
Correct.
section 8 or anything like
There's
that.
no section 8 vouchers in the building.
So again, I like to pursue this further. I understand the urgency portion of it. I think that for the next round, if everyone else could.
Jim, make a motion.
No, I just, before, I just preface it, by we push it to the next round, which is in a couple of weeks here, I think it's gotta be very clear that you have 1 or 2 bedroom units you're gonna put out there. And the commitment to the town is much more clear. I think this is kind of.
Well, step one,
It just kind of goes in the back door, and the real issue is, you have 2 units, you're looking to commit for 10 years for people that are living and working in the community, they aren't gonna have to move. So you're not gonna have to have people that are trying to look for 2 weeks at the Holiday Inn or something, you're gonna have to keep people that are there and keep the community intact, I think that's important. So that's where I'd like to see it move forward. The second.
Martha?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Pat, you all set? Rich? All right, so I'll take a motion on this.
I'd like to make a motion and we push this to the next round. And
Step 2.
Step 2. For the clarification.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, so, if this goes through to step 2, the question I'm gonna raise there is that, so we're trading two affordable units in a workforce housing development. Like, I'm not sure, like, the numbers make sense for us to spend the town's money in this way. Like, I'm not sure, like, with the Allender project that we saw, like, it clearly showed the gap in the rentals, right? What they would rent out for versus what they would rent out for as affordable. And I'm just not sure, you know, like, if this is a workforce housing, we need workforce housing. You know, I don't know if we need to, and whether or not just the building and what kind of building it is just going to make the units, you know, workforce housing or affordable anyway. And so that's, I would need to, for my vote, I would need to be shown that there is going to be a significant difference in rent.
Any other comments? Rich?
I just think for round two, if this moves on to round two, I think what we're trying to say is we just need a lot more detail about what the units will be like, how you're gonna use the funding right away, and maybe if you can give us more detail about the current tenants and your overall thing, trying to keep it a workforce place, try to make clear what that means to you.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay,
I have
one quick statement, go ahead.
So the mixture, so let's say this does go through and there's 2 workforce units, are the rest gonna be market rate then? So is that what?
Yes, those things are
Okay,
market rate, they
So it'd
will
be
stay
two-
market rate
Yeah.
unless if there is a monetary arithmetic reason to change it, which is what I'm offering to the town.
okay, so it would be 2 workforce housing and the rest would be market rate.
Correct.
Okay, we're gonna vote. You ready? Kate Van Olson. To approve to move to step 2, that would be yes, to say no would be no.
Aye.
Jeremy,
Hi.
Pat, Richard,
Aye.
John,
No.
Jim,
I,
Lee.
Yeah.
Martha. Aye. Karen, no. So what do we have?
Passes 6-3.
There you go. Okay,
Thank you.
next.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's do, farmsteads for farmers project. I presume the presenter is Susan Witt. And who else? I don't understand.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
This is the step 2.
This is ridiculous.
This is 2 for step 1.
Who's gonna be your presenter, Susan?
Eric.
Fine, can you introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, my name is Eric Alacino.
Yes. And you are,
I'm a board member at the Berkshire Community Land Trust.
And I'll
okay,
be jumping in as well. I'm Sarah Downey. I'm also a board member at Berkshire Community Land Trust.
And
Peter Usolowski, I'm the attorney for the Land Trust.
Jesus, they bought the 18. And even which,
not only that, this is.
I know, this is. Okay, I'm gonna indicate what I said to the other persons, that we understand what you're looking for, but we also need to understand why the urgency, and that's gotta be clear.
So do you want?
Sure, I'll lead off. So the urgency, I assume you've read the application.
Yeah.
The urgency, it's a little complicated. So right now, just to give some context, Jane Iredale owns this land. And the Farmsteads for Farmers is an initiative of the Community Land Trust, which seeks to preserve land for farmers. So we're seeking to own land and lease it and have the farmers own the buildings. And then we lease back the land under a 98-year lease, the longest term lease we can have, to the farmers and keep it out of the market and keep it for farming and agricultural purposes long-term, perpetually. The issue is funding, is money. And so, we could not, step in and buy this land outright. So Jane Iredale, we're all very grateful. She stepped in and she bought it. And the plan was, before this sort of urgent need came up, that we would raise funds and buy it from Jane. But there wasn't, there's always urgency because Jane doesn't want to hold the land long term. But we didn't have an immediate and pressing need. It sort of would happen as a matter of course. We are still planning to raise funds. We have our campaign going, but now the immediate need. So in June, I believe it was, of this year, Anna and Rob, who are going to be the prospective tenants and owners of the building at River Run for Off the Shelf Farm, they received a grant from the government of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I believe it was sort of derivative of some emergency COVID legislation that this grant program started. They received a $500,000 grant. And that grant is to be used for their farm. And so I don't need to go into the background of Anna and Rob's story, but they have a successful farm. Their land is sort of all over the place. They would be concentrating their operations at River Run and scaling their operations, adding more employees, having a long-term plan. So the grant for $500,000 is for buildings, for the land, for winter housing. They have an egg operation, so it's winter housing for the chickens. It's a wash station, and it's storage. It suits their long-term plan. And the buildings have to be built by next July. So they have a year to build the buildings and so.
Or the money goes.
Correct.
Money goes.
And they have a $500,000 grant and this has to be completed. So the predecessor event is actually acquiring this land and moving it forward.
Wait a minute,
So-
let me get a point of clarity here.
Mhm.
So these people have a $500,000 grant to build buildings, but they don't got the land to put the buildings on. We have a chicken and an egg problem.
Right.
In my
The chicken
stupidity.
Basically, yeah. I
Oh,
mean,
good, I'm
Jane-
glad I got that.
Jane owns the land.
Wait a
and
minute, let me
Jane-
ask you a question. What's the price of the land?
So with the building, the house,
No,
that.
no. I mean, Jane bought it to
Right.
hold it for you guys. You're going to try to raise some money.
1.6 million.
She spent 1.6 million, or that's the ask?
Correct. No, that's not the ask here, no.
No, I know what the ask is here. I got that. I read that.
Purchase price.
That was her purchase price.
Well, correct. Her purchase price was 1.2. During that time of purchase in October till now, she has added another 400,000 of improvements. She's cleared
All the invasive species, she's upgraded the house to a livable house. I mean, basically gutted the house and restored the current
So
house.
why
And
does
that
everybody else have to own it?
Excuse me?
Sounds like she's done the job.
Well, she was not doing this as a permanent gift. There will be some component later
It's a
on that
bridge loan.
it's effectively. Effectively.
Keep going.
Sure, so, did that answer your questions about what the buildings were for?
So the urgency is that we need to acquire the land from
So you
Jane.
have someplace to spend the $500,000 you got for the builders.
We don't have the $500,000. Yeah, we don't have that.
I understand, but
Right.
when I'm using the word we, I'm
Right.
talking about the royal we.
Got it. And the state won't let the money be spent on land where they're just tenants at will.
Makes sense to me. My God, the government is thinking.
And June 30 is the end of the fiscal year, and June is always helpful.
And it's
because I
September.
do a lot of.
John?
Just, I don't remember reading in here that what you just said was said. And that's sort of an important point. So you might want to re-stress that.
Yeah.
That they won't, because the way I'm looking at it is, and this is gonna sound crass. but not crass. Basically, you guys need to make Jane whole. And
Yeah.
Right.
and that's what we're trying, the money that we're putting out is trying to do that. And I'm all for making everybody whole,
Sure.
but she bought the property,
Right.
she bought it, you know. The point that you made, which is that they won't be allowed to build with the state's money
Right.
until the land is acquired, is an important.
It's that they need the 99-year lease.
It was in there, I didn't see that.
They can't put the state money in as long as their tenants as well.
Right.
Could be evicted on 30 days. And the state fiscal year is July 1 to June 30. And I run into this every spring where we have to finish this deal by June 30 or the money goes back. to the general fund. So for clarity, we are looking not from you, but we're looking at getting 900,000. We have 100,000 on hand. There's another 200,000 that gets raised from the sale of the house, which becomes a part of, but that's the skin in the game that Ann and Rob will have in this. They actually purchased the house. So
Oh, they did.
they will. And we're targeting raising 200K from our Farmstead Farmers campaign, which is now in full swing. And what we're asking for here from the CPA is 400K of the amount of money that has to be acquired.
And I will just add that this is, Farmstead for Farmers is not, it's not a program to get a farm for Anna and John. It's a program for long-term success for farmers in the community. This is our, and BCLT has a history of this with Indian Line Farm, but the situation's in a bit of a crisis now. So this is the pilot initiative of Farmstead for Farmers. Is this farm, and we want to continue with other farms.
So what happens if Anna and Rob decide in 15 years they're retiring?
It's, they can sell to another farm.
But what they're selling is the house and the right to the lease of the.
Correct. That's correct. This is the community land trust model.
Right.
Where community land trust has 2 housing developments, where it owns the land. And various individuals buy the house, and each time there's a purchase of a house, there's a new lease executed for.
Just like
land.
cars are.
Correct. That's part of the community purchase.
I'm just trying to see if I'm staying awake. Martha?
You have checked off community housing.
Yeah, what's that?
So could you address that? I think I read somewhere in there that the workers on the farm would have a place to live, but maybe you could clarify that.
That's the house.
Yeah, but they're buying that house.
That they're buying it for the workers that will be there. They're not gonna actually reside there.
Where the hell are they gonna live?
Well, they actually will live off property. They have a residence off property, so this is not intended to give Ann and Rob a residence. They have a residence, but they do need to have a place for workers to reside on the property. What they are buying cannot be used for a vacation rental, it can't be used for short-term rental. It is only intended to be used
Well,
for.
I'm confused. They're buying the house.
Correct.
Yes.
But you're checking this here for the 400,000 that you want. Now, how does that work? Is that the land? Is that the house? I'm confused.
It's the entire project.
Yes.
So without the money to have the land and to put the community land trust model into place, the house doesn't become.
The whole thing falls apart.
Right, it doesn't become part of the workers.
Is there 1 deed or 2 deeds? The house is on a separate deed?
It's like all the other projects, there's a bill of sale for the house since it's not realty. And there's a long-term lease for the property.
But what I'm asking is, so the house and the land, all tied together?
All
You
of
have
the
to
land,
separate
yeah,
it?
all of the land is, I mean, actually, all the leases between land trusts say.
I know, but that doesn't work.
You used to have, if you wanted.
The other ones say, it should come in.
And there's provisions that if,
So it's chattel, it's chattel.
it's chattel. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Where you find this most commonly is on the vineyard, where the Methodist community there is exactly like this. And they're used to doing these bills at sale, which down there are registered with the town clerk, but not recorded. And the land continues to be owned by the community.
Just two more questions. How many workers do you plan?
Well, there's gonna be two phases of workers.
No, once it's all been running.
So, yeah, so that initial phase of building out that is gonna be up to 24 workers who are working. But that's an intermittent period. And then on a permanent basis, it's hard to give you an exact figure because we don't know what efficiencies they're gonna be able to get out of this new equipment. It's gonna be anywhere from 6 to 8 employees.
And so they would be people that live, 6 to 8 people live in that house?
No, it wouldn't be 6 to 8 living at the house. It would probably be 2 to 4 living at the house. And then the other employees would be coming in.
Thank you.
Martha?
Well, I have a question. This is a big chunk of the actual money we have.
Yeah.
And you've seen, we haven't other than asked to.
Sure.
What would happen if we didn't give you 400,000? What if we said we'll give you 250 or 3? So how do you feel about that?
But we'd say thank you.
Proof, that's proof. Good job. Your mother trained you well.
Kate's got her hand up.
I know, I got it. I can only go one at a time.
Clearly, we would have to.
Raise more.
We would have to raise more. And candidly, you know, we are gonna do our best to reach out to the community. And do everything we can to appeal to the generosity of the local community. To help with this. And I wanna, you know, make it clear that the land that Rob and Anna currently use is not their own land. They are basically itinerant and they're moving around these large mobile chicken coops from one place to another. And that's the way they've been able to be successful.
My next door neighbor does the same thing.
And part of this grant that they've gotten has been based on food security because Off the Shelf Farms is a big donor. And so, you know, it contributes to the community. If anything, appeals to community preservation. It's opportunities like this where there will be employees, where in the larger scheme of things, and I thought that was a very astute question, the larger scheme of things, in the whole package, there is workforce housing, although as you correctly, you know, pointed out, that specific house is not itself, it's owned by them. It wasn't, they're gonna buy it. So in that sense, the monies are not going directly to that, but to the larger package of things.
Kate Van Olst, you're up.
Thanks. So I just wanted to say from the point of view, I'm here from the Conservation Commission. I know this is filed under affordable housing, but this project has my full support. Given where this property is located, it provides a really nice opportunity for contiguous land maintained as farmland or green space in our community. And so I think that's one of the really important things to consider in this. So this is prime farmland that we're keeping out of development and providing opportunities for growing families and young members of our community to have successful businesses, employ local employees, and keep doing the stuff that maintains the character of our town. I think that this $500,000 grant is a huge accolade that they've received, and I'd rather see that money invested in our town and we do what we can to maintain that than, you know, I'm sure they'll scurry and try to find some land somewhere else, but I think that's a way that our CPA funds can get leveraged to make a really meaningful impact. So I'd like to make a motion to approve this for step 2.
Okay.
I'll second that.
We have discussion, just everybody calm down. Jeremy, your hand is up. Do you want to talk?
Sure.
This breaks.
So I think this Farmstead for Farmers program is amazing. I mean, I had similar things to Kate. Is there any?
Jeremy,
This
you're
is a
breaking
question.
up. It's very
Are
difficult to hear you.
there any restrictions that are already on the land? On the land?
Need to be in that.
Can you hear me?
No,
No,
it's all garbled.
It's all
Yeah, if you can
garbled.
hear me, are there any current restrictions on the land?
There are no special restrictions.
None.
You've got obviously conservation, you've got the Rivers Act, you've got various environmental restrictions, but it's otherwise unrestricted. Jeremy, we have a map here that shows
He's
how
got the
that's
map.
divided up.
Yeah,
He's got a copy of the map.
Yeah, perfect. No, that's what I wanted to know
Okay,
beyond that.
anybody else? Lee, go right ahead.
I have a point of order, so I should have recused myself on the previous application, which was the marble block, and I'm realizing that I should not be participating in this because it has community housing, so I just want to make that for the minutes that I should not have been participated in that vote, and I probably should be recusing myself from this, which I will.
You can go to the bathroom. Okay.
Is this community housing or really an open space application?
Yeah, I would, this is Chris, I would like the applicant to address the housing portion. How will it be guaranteed that this will remain eligible as 100% of their income or less?
That'll be in the lease, as will a requirement that the land be used for agriculture.
And somebody will check those incomes.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I should step away or.
Yes, go away.
I'd like to add two things. Anna's not here because her baby is due tomorrow.
So Kate.
Otherwise, she'd be a part of this. And further clarification, Jane Ardell is just the best to work with. She's allowing Anna and Rob to go through with permits and build the buildings, right? But until the land is transferred to the community fund trust, Jane will own them. So we're hustling to get this done. So the farmers side.
Rich?
I just wanted to suggest that in the step 2 process, you can be more clear about your alternate sources of funding and alternate plans.
Absolutely.
So that we have a clearer picture of what the absolute need is and what you're hoping you can get from CPC. Okay.
Thank you, that's good counsel.
Okay, we're gonna vote. Jeremy, there's been a motion and a second on moving this to step 2. Jeremy?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye. Aye.
Pat? Aye. Rich?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye. I abstain.
Okay. 8-0.
Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to caution the committee, okay? At this point, you've expended more than we will have.
Well, that's true, but
No, we know that.
we haven't,
Okay,
we actually haven't approved.
no, I understand, I'm just letting you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of like doing it.
Okay, last would be the Ramsell Library project. One thing I need to ask is I need to know where the documentation is that the library trustees have approved this request. Hello? I'm asking where the minutes are of the meeting that the library trustees have approved this request.
I didn't realize you needed it, but I can get it for you.
Okay. Go ahead.
And who are you, ma'am?
I'm Ruby Chang, MD.
What do you have to do with the Ramsdale Library?
I'm on the library board of trustees.
Okay.
I'm a elected member.
You need to speak up. Say again.
I am an elected member of the board of trustees of the library.
Great.
So I'm going to give you, all of you, something totally different. I'm going to give you guys a chance to do something good for every citizen of this town. From the children, the infants, to the elderly. The marginalized, as well as those who have who are well off. They all need a functional and safe library. We have the Ramsdale, and we fulfill the criteria that you had requested for urgency, for historic reasons, and also for the welfare of the town. It is well written on your paperwork. So if you have questions, feel free to ask.
Start them up. Go ahead, Martha.
Well, it's not clear to me how the 200,000 is being used. I mean, it's sort of in here, but it would make more sense if you said, we're hiring so-and-so to do phase 2. It will cost us so many dollars, and we have to have this done by May 31st. But I'm really confused on how the 200,000 is to be used.
Thank you for the question. This goes back to the urgency of the date that we need this for. Number one is that the ultimate goal is to refurbish the historical property, the Ramsdale Library. And to do that, we need millions of dollars. We do have that opportunity by getting state construction grant of millions of dollars, okay? And that will help to give an elevator to the second floor of that rundown building, I hate to say, with electrical systems that are not even in code, windows that don't open, and HVAC that is not appropriate for COVID pandemic. And it is one of the most used buildings in town for all. So to get this grant, we have to send in the application by May 31st, 24. And as part of the requirement, we have to have at least $150,000 from the town in deposit. Now, we're barely gonna make it if the town meeting is to be in May of 24. But now that you have this application round, we felt it was urgent for us to apply now. We also need money for a building program. I don't know if you guys know what a building program is. It gives you the whole concept, the whole structure of the building in minute details and square footage and what has been used, what is necessary, and to make it most important, ADA compliant. Now, the ADA compliance request has been from the 1990s. We're 30 years behind in a town building to make it compliant. How many of you have relatives, neighbors who cannot get up the steps of the library? How many of you have children who are in carriages that cannot get up the steps? And therefore, all of these people cannot use a public library that is free for all. And now you guys have a chance to do something about it. of service.
I also absolutely
Is
think
that,
that needs.
is that urgency understandable?
Oh, that's.
Wait a minute, one at a time. Go ahead, Martha, then you, Pat, and then
I'm
Lane.
still confused.
Yeah.
You need 150,000 for the grant for the construction from the state.
I'm Pat Allenbeck, I'm the chair of this. Good question, Martha. What it is in the application from the state, they require, the 150,000 is required for planning design. That's their number. The other number comes from also the Massachusetts Building Library Commissioners, Board of Library Commissioners. And but the other things that they are requiring, because when you try to renovate a building, they're requiring to have a conditions assessment study done, must be completed by a building engineer science firm. For that, the building program, the library commissioner said, you really got to plan on $50,000 to get all that done. So that's your two numbers there.
Okay, well, for step two, you're gonna have to lay that all out because,
We'll bring the documentation.
yes, because I looked at it and I went, what's this for? You know, it just isn't clear in here. I understand the urgency. In fact, you've lost a couple of these building grants, if I remember in the past, because you weren't ready for them.
Incorrect.
No,
No, that's just not true. There was one that they started to try to do, and I wasn't involved around 2010. That was coming out of the Great Recession. They couldn't do it anyway because there was a certain limitation. Mason was done in 2007. So the state said you can't build, have another project for X amount of years.
yeah.
They started it before, they started that plan, it was doomed to start with because they couldn't do it. Then there was another round that I was involved with, starting around 2016. The town manager at the time said, I'm not gonna sign this thing.
Well, I remember that.
So that's what happened on that.
Okay.
And so what the building commissioner said, library commissioners, they said, look, why don't you guys just start doing what you need to get done for the program. Whenever a grant comes up, then you're gonna be ready. The grant from 2016, it took till 2023, February this year, quite suddenly, they announced that there was gonna be a program.
Okay.
So we've done whatever we can, it's just COVID, everything
Yeah.
happened.
Okay. Lee?
So with the Massachusetts Public Library Construction Program, I would love to see the actual grant applications. Usually they have a schedule and they'll say, all the different, I know you're telling us orally the requirements, but what I'd like to see is the requirements and how much it is, if we have to provide it, what's the date? Because I feel that this is kind of feeling a bit piecemeal to me, and I'm wondering if, you're kind of grabbing at things and what I'm missing is the bigger picture.
Yeah.
What if you get this little chunk, but how many other things do you have to fulfill to be counted in this bigger program? Because it is a quite lengthy grant and it's very, very competitive. So I'd like to see the whole breakdown, what your plan is. So let's say you get these two little things checked, how many other things do you have to nail to be
It's an
competitive?
award process, so they go through everything that we talked about, and they assess a number to it, and it's whoever gets the most points wins, apparently. They also have a waiting list that there has to be. Some of these projects, some of these take years to get on the pipeline. But the most important thing is, this would be seed money for us, because the CPA money would be a statement that the town is behind this. Then we can try to raise additional funds we're gonna need anyway, because this is for the building. But to fit the building with 21st century equipment is not cheap. And that's not, we can't apply for any money.
Okay,
So that-
my turn. Here's my problem with this whole situation. It is piecemeal. And you say, well, the town's gonna show support. I wanna see what the total cost is and what the town is gonna have to pay to build this building, because I'll be honest with you, I don't think we need a second library. There's not a town in the Commonwealth this size that has two functional libraries buildings. They don't. And here's my problem. The way this has been done, this little piecemeal here and piecemeal there, I want to vote to go to town meeting and I want somebody to say, yeah, Karen, the plan we're looking at, it's gonna cost $2.5 or $3 million, whatever, and we may have a grant for $500,000 or whatever. This doesn't tell me anything. This little chip away at this, and we get a little boiler here, and a little of this, and a little of this. By the time we're halfway down the street, nobody knows what it's gonna cost. And until I ever vote for anything to do with a library in Housatonic, I wanna see a cogent clear plan and cost total. But you don't have that, and now you want 200,000 for this, and we gotta do that, and the windows. I was on the library trustees 15 years ago. This is the same jazz, and nobody has ever taken this to do it in a total plan. So I wanna know as a taxpayer, what your expectation is to build a new library. Is it 2, is it 3, is it $4 million? We have a functional library, and again, I do not know of a town in the Commonwealth with less than 7,000 people that has 2 libraries.
I think I can answer that question. And number one is that we're all elected officials. And our conduct is in response to the needs of this town. Is that correct?
I beg your pardon?
We're all elected officials?
No,
No?
no.
So
We're appointed.
So who are our allegiance to? What are our allegiances?
I don't know what your allegiance to. I know what mine is I want to know 3 ways. Number one, as a taxpayer, I want to know who's spending my money and why it's being spent.
Good.
This is not anything that gives me any idea in a totality of what it is.
All right.
Number one. Number two,
So
as part of
let me ask you a
CPA,
question.
no, excuse me, you asked me a question. As part of CPA, my responsibility is to the Parks Department. That's who got me on here, okay? Martha's a citizen at large, Lee is part of the select board, Jim is part of the historical, John is part of the housing, Rich Schuyler's part of the finance, and Pat is part of the citizen at large, okay? That's where, if you want to talk about allegiance that's where this committee comes from.
I understand.
And we're not elected. Go ahead, John.
I have 2 things.
Sorry, and then Pat.
One is, you mentioned the second floor of Ramsdale. There's nothing up there but storage, isn't there?
Yes.
Exactly.
That's,
because
there's no need for an elevator.
because there's no way to get up there.
Right, okay. And in part 2 is as a resident of Housatonic, that library, regardless of what you think, is absolutely critical to the town of Housatonic, the village of Housatonic in the town of Great Barrington. It may well be that there's not another town in the Commonwealth our size that has 2 libraries, but Housatonic as a village, if you took that away, that would be the last thing. There is nothing else. You got the school going, the Hoosie Dome's there, you got the library, the mills are gone. If you take that away.
I'm not taking anything. It could be used for something else. I'm not saying take it away. I'm saying.
Like the
use
school,
it.
you mean, which has been.
I'm not gonna
used
get
for
into that.
something
That's
else.
not what this is about.
But it is,
Well,
it really is.
that's your opinion.
Okay.
It could be a community building.
It could be. Pat?
I would like to support what Martha said, that for a second round, it would be very helpful to me to have you very clearly state the grant and the needs assessment that it's requiring, what the cost of that is, so that I just felt the proposal didn't make it clear enough why this is a pressing need. I know that you've been working on the building in various ways, and we've given money for it before. But because this is this special round where you have to talk about the pressing immediacy of the need, the date of the grant, and what needs to be done before that, at a minimum, to be able to apply for the grant, that's what we need to know. And that's what I need to know.
I like to repeat myself one more time. Number one is, first of all, we had a survey just August of 2023. Many of you may have seen us at the farmer's market asking for surveys. 97% of people requested that we save Ramsdale. Okay, so the town does want the library. And this is like a repetitive question over the years. So to answer your question, we do need the library. Number two is Housatonic has, you have all supported affordable housing. You wanted people to live in the school building in Housatonic, or the town does, maybe not you guys. But the town had wanted affordable housing. If you have affordable housing, you have predominantly families that are going to be living there. They need something besides just living in a house. They need some sort of community connection. And that community connection comes from a community center and a service that is free. And that's where Ramsell comes in. And it's absolutely critical for the culture, for the community, for the connectivity to have it there. Now, we've worked really hard and we will support the plan, but you also have to realize, where does the library get money to get this building program updated? I don't know how much architects cost, but I think they cost at least a couple $100 an hour. And who's gonna come up with that kind of funding, except from your CPA grant? We need the funding now so that we could give you those answers.
So a couple questions.
Mr. Mercer, and then Lee.
Again, I think it's just wonderful that you're advocating for Housatonic in the library. I think it's a wonderful project. It's historic, it's community-based, it ticks a lot of boxes. But I guess what I'm with Pat and with Martha, it's like, the one thing, looking through the application, it says the assessment study. Conditions of assessment is number one of the most important things that you need to do. Do you have someone in mind that is on tap to do that? Do you have a quote from them? Do you have identified a professional to do the
Once we
assessment?
get past this portion, we've been working on this.
No, what I'm asking is, do you have someone now who can do the assessment and get this into us?
We do have the backing of the Massachusetts.
No, I'm asking specifically, again,
One person.
again, it's an urgent thing.
No,
What?
we do not.
We don't have the funds. See, it's the chicken before the egg in here too, right? If
It
we
is,
get
but I
the-
guess where I'm going with it is like, this is a wonderful project, but I don't, if it's an urgent project, we're looking for shovel ready. If you look at the criteria that we sent out with these applications, it's pretty clear what, the criteria that this special round is for. And again, I'm not gonna quiz you anymore, but those are the things that we would need to see in the second round of this passes. Specifically, we have this person that can do this, and this is how much it's gonna cost, these are the other elements, how much these are gonna cost. So everyone needs an idea, can feel comfortable with this.
Yeah, I think one thing, Jim, don't forget, we have to do RFPs for some of this stuff. We can't just go out and get somebody to do this stuff. It's part of our problem. And I think the other thing is, this is all prescribed by the library commissioners. Everything that we've mentioned that we need, that's what we need to get the grant. We
I
don't
understand, but
want
what I'm
these
hearing
steps.
is that you're not shovel ready, you're not ready to go with this. So it really isn't. applicable for
Shovel
this.
ready is a term of art.
But this is
Obama
applicable.
used it in his 2008 campaign.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
where it came from. And in 2010, in Google this, on CBS News, he said there's no such thing as shovel ready. So there's all kinds of things.
Well, shovel ready would mean that you have somebody lined up who will do this assessment. There's no guarantee that you'll be able to come up with somebody who can do the assessment in time. I mean, think of all the things you try to do and you can't get the people to do them.
Lee, go ahead.
So I really want to support this. I really think that the library is integral to Housatonic. I think having a center is huge. I really want to support this. You know, what my stumbling block is, it's not here. You're not showing me where the actual $200,000 is gonna be spent. So to Jim's
Well, I
point,
give it to you, it's-
the condition.
It should have been in.
Like, what exactly is that? And, I'd like to be very, very confident that this money is gonna be used, for the purpose that you're stating, or is it gonna be the elevator? So if you don't.
No, it has to be.
So
this.
it's confusing.
No, it
So
has to
I
be
just
this.
don't have the confidence right now, and I really want to.
Okay.
So,
So,
I'm challenging you to step up and make
I
make
have
us
to say
confident.
that we have been preparing for this for many years now. This is not just something that came up this summer and we decided to do this. Ramsell has gone through hundreds of thousands of dollars to get archaeological studies done.
We
Okay,
supported that.
exactly. So that is a concern because we are working our way toward something that is an opportunity for, you know, you may not get another one in the next 8 to 10 years. In the meantime, what's happening to Housatonic? Are we gonna start to deal with PCBs being dumped up there? We're having affordable housing, but the kids have nowhere to go. It's true. You asked, we did
The work that you're doing now at the library, and I go to Housatonic all the time, and I see all the work that's going out in front. Tell us about that, and what that entails and where that funding came from.
It doesn't apply to this funding at all, because it's.
Oh, I understand, but just brief the committee of what's going on.
No, you tell us, it's your library.
It's our library, and Chris knows we have nothing to do with that project.
You have nothing to do with the project at Ramsdale?
No.
Well,
Let me go back to 2016.
no, what's going on at Ramsdale
They're
right
putting a
now?
ramp, they're putting a ramp in.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Jeremy? I wish you would pay attention. Jeremy, you have a question? Never mind.
Its hand down.
Anybody else?
So to answer your question, they're putting in. a
Sorry,
ramp.
I'm not a panelist anymore, so I can't unmute myself. Oh, now I can, I guess. I didn't have anything more to add, sorry.
Okay, then take your hand down. That would be helpful. Go ahead, Ruby.
Thank you. So, you know, they're also putting in a boiler. However, you have to understand that last year, when COVID started, the library was closed from March until the following year, January of 21. And why is it closed? Because we didn't have good HVAC system to be able to allow people to go into the library. So anything that they needed had to be requested and then put outside. Is this what you want to do again this coming winter? These are all important problems of this town that cannot be kicked down the road. And you may say that you want something shovel ready, meaning that we already hired people to do the architectural work, to have the program, and you have in front of you an exact number of what needs to be done, but that costs money. And where does that money come from? We have to start somewhere.
What exactly is a conditions assessment study?
We need to assess we need
That costs
engineers
$200,000.
and architects, and also people who are good with sustainability to come in and see exactly the condition of the building as of now. And so then we can assess how much money we're gonna have to put in to fix it. And how high is our ceiling for the degree of work that needs to be done. So that is what a condition assessment is. It's a very comprehensive assessment from the brick and mortar to the electrical system, to the windows, to the HVAC, to the sustainability of the humidity of that building.
So follow-up, is that the only obstacle from you submitting a grant application? Not having the money to complete this studies?
We need the money to do the building program, the conditions assessment, and $150,000. Otherwise, you're just kicking that grant down the road, and we're not gonna get any funding for that Ramsdale until it starts to decay
So
more and more.
can you talk about the competitiveness of this grant? Like,
Extremely.
okay, so what if, you know, we spend this $200,000 and you don't get it?
That's a very good question. The number one thing that we talked about with the library commission is what is the most important thing that you're looking for? And the number one thing that they were looking for, 40% is needs. What is the needs of that area? What are the needs of the population? And I have to say, Housatonic, there's a lot of needs going on.
But So I guess, you know, the $200,000 is for this particular grant, so
Yes.
I'd like to know if this competitive grant, incredibly competitive grant, we don't get, we give you the $200,000, what happens to that money? Is it just?
We give it back to you,
Well,
right?
what's left, I mean, some of these things, we can't even put that application in if we don't have a purely, they want these studies done. Most libraries, unfortunately, they have money put aside.
So that's, again, I'd like to see the check box
Yep.
in your grant application of all the things that you need, because I feel like we're just seeing a little bit. Because there could be 10 other things that we don't know about.
For the
that-
grant application, that's it. They're pretty strict about this. Now, let's go back to Sharon's question about cost. It was 1.9 in 2010, 1.9 million. When we tried again in 2016, or started to, Monterey was talking about their library, they ended up spending 3.2 million. Small library, that's what about 7.
We're talking about 5 million.
So it's estimated for us is between 5 and 6 million. The state will pick up 60% of that money.
Says who?
The state, that.
Says who?
It's
Where is that
Okay.
in the documents that they say they're gonna cover 60%
We'll
of
give
the
you all, we'll
cost?
give you copies of the document, it's all there. They raised it, used to be 50%, now we're up to 60%.
Kate Van Alst, yes, ma'am.
So I wanted to, one, speak on behalf of the library as a young family who lives in Housatonic and walks there on a weekly basis to use the library. It's well loved and cherished and valuable part of the community. And two, I hear Karen's question about the overall, what's the end game? What is the overall nut that we need to crack in order to make a sustainable library? And what I hear the library trustee is saying is that the state also wants to have that question answered. And the way to do that is to have a building assessment done. And the way to have a building assessment done is to fund and pay for a building assessment. So this, it seems like it is chicken and egg. The only way we're going to get an answer as to what the building needs and how much it will cost is to have a bunch of engineers and architects and professionals come in there and assess it. And it seems like this is what the request is for, is to do that step, which whether we win, I mean, it would be really nice to get the state grant to do it. If we don't, for some reason, get the state grant, then at least we have our question answered, which is
Well, I
what does the library need, how much will it cost? And then we can look at future funding sources for that.
I think your point is valid, Kate, I'll give you that the way to do this is to assess it, but here's what I would like to say. Is that if you have this assessment and they come up with a number, that we go to town vote ahead of it and say, are you willing to spend $2.5 or $3 million to renovate Ramsdale on your taxes before we go any further with any of this? Because it's down the road and I get very worried about how that ends up. I hear you, I understand what you're saying, but my concern is I think the town needs to vote townwide, not an assessment of 300 people or survey that was done at the Housatonic Farmers Market. The people who need to vote are all the taxpayers of the whole town.
Karen, that's part of the law to do this, the town has to vote at it.
Go ahead, Kate, are you still wanting to talk? Your hands up.
I mean, the survey was done throughout the town. I did it at Berkshire South. It wasn't just at the library, at the Housatonic Library. And by the way, Housatonic is a part of Great Barrington, so yes. The whole input. We're never going to know how much the building needs until we pay someone to tell us how much the building needs.
Go ahead, Chris.
Part of the committee's job tonight is to judge eligibility and urgency. Clearly, it's a historic building, on the state register, national, clearly eligible for historic CPA funding. No question. Urgency. We've heard 50,000 is recommended to be as an estimate for the building needs study. Building needs study is a prerequisite to do anything else. The 150,000, I know that the library board says that has to be voted. I haven't heard that has to be spent. And when does it have to be voted and proven? So I guess my question is that 150 urgent now? Or can it wait until the May town meeting? The 50 sounds urgent. I guess I get that. 150, I haven't really understood why that's urgent. Usually the grants like this, knowing that votes are dependent on a spring town meeting, gives some sort of flexibility as to when commitments can be shown, even if the application is May 1st and the 31st. Commitments can be shown later. The votes can be shown later.
It's a good question, Chris. You know, one thing is, again, we're gonna try to actively fundraise. And I've already been to a fundraiser and she said, well, you're dead on the water if CPC doesn't give you any money. Because CPA, sorry. CPA. Because that's gonna demonstrate to donors, philanthropists, that the town will support this, so why should they? So that's one thing there. We're coming asking for 2. If we get less, then that also is a less of a commitment that the town is making.
Is the 150 urgently needed now? Is it a fundraising?
Not just
carrot?
The fundraising carrot is urgent,
Uh-huh.
because we're gonna need more than the town's gonna give us. We're gonna need money. And you know how the costs are escalating beyond belief. So it's gonna stop, every day we don't do this, it's gonna cost the taxpayers more at some point. And let me just say one other thing, if this doesn't work, because this is really an opportunity of a lifetime, this grant. So if we don't get this, that's a problem, but we would need a condition statement to try to do it in another way. Stockbridge Library didn't take any of this, didn't get any of the money from the state. So that's right up the road on E3. If they can do it, maybe we'll have to. But I think that's a pretty big ask to try to come up with the money to do it.
But 50,000 is urgently, is a prerequisite for anything.
Yeah, for 50,000, I mean, we need that. The second we get it, we're gonna spend that.
Martha?
I have a question. So many things are driven by RFPs. Does this have to be an RFP for this conditions thing? And is it realistic to say it can be done in 8 months?
An RFP is required for anything over $50,000. For building projects above a certain total development cost threshold. An RFP is needed for that contractor, but a full designer selection committee is needed for the actual architect. I think that's at a later stage. I think for the building conditions, if it's under 50, you can just do 3 quotes. If it's over 50.
So you have to keep it under 50.
An RFP is 30 days to be issued. An RFP is a 2 to 3 month process.
So I think Chris made an excellent point about splitting up the 50 and the 150, because that was just, I couldn't understand the 2 of them. So I understand the need. I tend to feel like the 50 should be separated from the 150. I need the urgency. Also, I see that conditions assessment study could be useful in the bigger picture. If we don't get the grant, at least we know what's wrong with it. So I'm actually feeling better about it, because I feel like, okay, we can use it. It's gonna come in handy, whether it's still a library or a community center or whatever. At least we know what the building needs. So I thank you for pointing out, because that's what I was having a really hard time deciphering.
And it's getting long and late, but the thing is, I mean, Karen makes a good point that it's another library and we need it. The survey that we did, overwhelmingly, the public feels that Mason and Ramsdale should have 2 separate independent ways of doing business. Furthermore, because of the pandemic, maybe especially, the amount of people in the survey that said they want a community center they can hang out in. So it's gonna be a library, and it's not gonna be just books. It's gonna be a chance for humanity to do their thing, right? So that takes care of your.
No, it doesn't. Please do not put words in my mouth.
I take them back.
My point is that I understand the emotional, because Alice Bubrisky is channeling my ears right now. How dare you know what I'm saying? How dare you say that? What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that that building is not important to Housatonic. What I'm saying, as a library, I'm not sure that's what it needs to be. I understand the community issue, I get that. But at this point, until somebody can tell me what it's gonna cost, so you can have a community center for $3.5 million, that may be something that doesn't fly with all of them, and surveys are great. Nobody's telling you in the survey, it's gonna cost you X amount of money in your tax bill. So that changes the whole, surveys are easy, it's when it comes down to the cost of it. So that's
That's what I'm talking
Move to
Well,
approve.
Can I just add to that, is that?
Excuse me.
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Great, discussion, go.
Okay, the library is more than just a place for books. It is a makerspace. It is a place where people can get hearing on electric, all kinds of technologies. It's a place where they can get wellness lectures, programs. It is a vibrant place for music, for children to sing along. It is a place where children can go after school for tutoring. This is the old definition of a library, is not the present definition of library anymore. So I would like to let everyone know that the definition of a library in many towns is much broader, it's much definitive. And also, we actually call it a third space. The number 2 requirement that people wanted was a community space, a quiet space, a place where they can have quiet conversation, where they can read and study and work. So this is no longer just a place for books. I just want to make that clear.
John, I need to get something on your motion. What is your motion?
Move to approve the Ramsdale Library Capital Renovation Improvement Program moving to the next round.
For $200,000 to step 2, is that what you're saying?
For the ask, yes.
Okay,
I would like to make an amendment. I would like to make another motion. That is-
well, I think you ought to talk to the motion maker.
So, are we having a discussion? I would like.
We're just moving it to the next round.
But then, no, I think she's got a
Yeah,
point.
I would like to amend that to $50,000. I think the urgency is the $50,000 and not the 150. So I would.
Or the 200.
Let's vote on the 200 and then.
Okay.
Make the amendment.
We can do it that way, that's why I was asking for clarity. Okay. Ms. Van Olst, the motion has been made and seconded for move this to step 2 for the 200,000, your vote.
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Aye.
No, I'd like to do it for 50,000.
Well, if we vote for this,
vote.
no,
I wonder
I'm
if,
voting
I wonder
now.
if that's a
The
step
motion-
2 thing anyway.
Excuse me, it passes, okay, so it's passed now. You understand? There was no discussion about any of that, that's why I don't want anybody to go off on the whatever. So we have voted 6-3 to move this to step 2 for the ask of $200,000. I also want you to all understand that we are way over budget, so something's gotta give.
well, I'm trying to comprehend why we talked about 50,000. What was the point of that discussion?
I think the point of the discussion is the urgency of what you need to do, what you need to do, not the totality of it. I think that was your point, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Lee?
that's a,
Yeah, that was my point.
it's a very good point. But I think that they made a decent case that the other 150, they need to have in the bank in order to proceed with the other stuff, so. Why not consider that for the next round? That was my only,
Okay.
that was my only thing.
I think
I-
it would be prudent to say to them now that the step 2 needs to be much better and tighter than this.
And you know what, I think we made that point with 3 of the 4
Oh, yeah,
applicants as well,
Yeah.
so.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
okay.
I want to make a suggestion, is that in your request forms, maybe you need to update it, so you can let us know exactly what you want.
What?
You want me
I
to
think
repeat-
the best
you
thing
want me
you
to
could do,
repeat
no,
it?
no, I don't want you to repeat it. What I want you to do is anything that you have a question on what needs to be submitted, this gentleman right here would be your go-to. He will be glad to make sure that any of the information that we need, he is the arbiter of such.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other reports from anybody on anything? Pat? Do you have any reports in general on anything?
No.
Richard?
No.
John, housing, whatever?
I'm feeling pretty good.
I'm glad. Mr. Mercer?
None.
Ms. Davis, Ms. Fick,
I have a question.
okay.
I went by Windrush and they had a big sign. This
Yeah.
was funded in cooperation with CDC, but I didn't see a CPA sign there at all. Do they have? I mean, what do we give them, 450,000? Gosh,
Oh, that's an yeah.
I think I mean, once again, I'd like the community to know what we're spending the money.
Right,
I think
it's not there, there's no signage there.
Just so you know, the permanent signage is not always installed outside. Sometimes it's in a lobby or a community.
This is just a temporary sign
There's no-
hanging out. It's a big
Vinyl.
temporary sign that they should have put us on too.
Difference between construction funding signs and permanent funding signs. I'll ask.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I just want to get credit
Okay.
for what we do.
Anybody else? Jeremy, do you have anything you want to say?
No.
Kate Van Ols. You about done? You gotta be done. Citizens speak, Ms. Mooney.
What? Oh, darn. What is the total that you have available?
What'd you say?
600,000.
Thank you.
Good. James from 84 North Plain.
This is James Garzone, 84 North Plain. I'm requesting the CPC allocate a larger percentage of CPA funds to the Affordable Housing Trust. I'm surprised that the Affordable Housing Trust hasn't taken this opportunity to request more funds during this open period, as they always state they need more money because they're missing opportunities. Let the Affordable Housing Trust get a greater share of the CPA funds, which grow housing prices, which they'll be more nimbly able to transact with the CDC construct and other entities. Thank you.
Mr. Higa.
No, I think you asked me already.
Okay.
Bill Sharon? Oh, he just said.
And they're not.
No, they're done.
Move to adjourn.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I
All in
move we
favor?
adjourn.
Aye.